Well, they're acting like it's still an election or something. Like, look at these polls. We got them now. We got them now. Like, what are you talking about? We just had an election. There's no looming election here. And why would anybody criticize Pierre Poilievre at a time like this? Carney is robbing us blind. And I'm like, yeah, well, we better get him out of there. And the only reason that he's in there now is because your leader does not appeal to Canadians. He has a negative 26 net approval rating. So get somebody that people like, and then you'll get your goddamn majority, for crying out loud.
Welcome back to the channel. Sorry I've been away for so long, but I've been spending time with my family around Christmas time, and I had some uncomfortable dental surgery, which I'm still recovering from, and my voice sounds a little bit fucked right now. But yeah, as they say, the show must go on, and I have a guest today. And my guest today is returning for the second time to the program. His name is Jeff Evely. If you don't know the story, he's been on before. He very famously stood up to Tim Houston's tyrannical Woods ban and basically voluntarily got himself a almost $26,000 ticket, if I remember correctly. And yeah, so it was pretty wild that you went through that to prove a point at just how tyrannical this province and this country has become. So Jeff, man, welcome back to the show.
Thanks for having me back, Johnny. Appreciate it.
No problem, man. And yeah, there's some recent events with Tim Houston that I definitely want to get into. But first, if you don't mind, like, is there any update on the ticket? Have you actually had to pay the money? Are you fighting it?
Oh, I'm not paying that.
Of course not.
It was closer to $29,000, by the way, $28,872.50. Because there's taxes and victim fees on top of the $25,000.
Right. We talked about the victim fee last time, and I'm still trying to wrap my head around who the victim is besides you. But
yeah, well, that's what I've been saying. I say I am. So where it is right now, the fine itself, like we won't be going to trial for that until like the fall. My understanding is that the province outsourced the crown role to some hotshot lawyer in town here. So apparently they're out for blood. But we are in court in February. We were supposed to go on the 3rd and 4th, but it sounds like the province is having a difficult time kind of cobbling together fabricated evidence for to assemble the record to go to a hearing, because the Justice Center for Constitutional Freedoms, they stepped in to provide my legal representation. What they've done is they filed an application for judicial review in light of our charter rights to ask a judge, whether or not these bans are legal. So they've submitted that in my private interest, and the Canadian Constitution Foundation has submitted their own application for judicial review in the public interest. So we have two different charter applications from two different civil liberties organizations, one in my private interest and one in the public interest. So I think that's about as good a shot as we're going to get. I was talking to Marty Moore there, the litigation director at the JCCF, and he said that I guess between the Canadian Constitution Foundation and the province, they've kind of been going back and forth because the province has been, I guess they're disputing what the province is trying to enter into the record as evidence that was before the minister, before he made the decision to issue the proclamation to ban assault from the woods. So I don't know. It sounds like they're trying to put some stuff in from, after the fact and things like that. But maybe we won't be going to court on the 3rd and 4th of February. It might be a little bit later in the month or something like that. So it all kind of depends on how long it takes the province to get its act together.
Well, I'm anxious to see the results, and I certainly hope you do get in there before February, because I'd like this thing wrapped up before next summer, because I don't want it to be the standard moving forward that I can't travel freely as like a free individual. I can't be trusted to go for a walk in the forest as a grown adult, because as you famously pointed out, I don't know what the issue is. Like, maybe my sneakers might cause a fire.
Yeah.
Like, I'm a responsible adult, dude. Like, I smoke cigarettes. I smoke, but, like, I'm not going to be walking through the brush smoking a cig during wildfire season. You know what I mean? And it doesn't seem evident to me that, like, sure, somebody else might, but I don't think you should punish everybody just because somebody might,
Yeah, the blanket punishments for all is pretty clearly like that. That's not even just a charter violation. Pretty sure that's more like the Magna Carta or something like that. It's clearly tyrannical. And Tim Houston did say at a press conference, I'm not even sure who the reporter was who asked him, but he was pretty good. He asked him, well, given that global boiling isn't going away and there's going to be another summer next year, can we expect that you're going to be canceling more summers into the future? Essentially, is what he asked him, and Tim Houston said, "Well, I can't predict the weather like next year. I don't know what the weather's going to be like." In other words, yes, like if Tim Houston feels like it, he's going to ban us from the woods because he's scared of the weather.
Yeah, I remember that too. I remember covering that exact clip. And one thing that I never really mentioned back when I made that video, but I'm starting to notice it now thinking back. Whenever Tim Houston lies, look for it the next time he does a big lie. He always does this like exaggerated sigh. You know what I mean? Like what he's almost like getting it off his chest. You know what I mean? Oh, I've been thinking about how I'm going to spin this bullshit to the public. He always go like the Woods ban, for instance. He's like, and the fine for violating this rule is, and he sighed. He's like, $25,000. He did the same thing with the fentanyl lie. And actually, that's quite a good segue into this because
in law enforcement have told me in this province that they've taken illegal cannabis from unregulated illegal dispensaries and tested it and found that it was laced with traces of fentanyl. So, sometimes I hear, I don't buy from the government supply because I don't get the same buzz. Well, that's probably why.
So did you hear that sigh there?
Yeah.
That's exactly what I'm talking about. He did the exact same thing when he announced the Woods ban. He goes, $25,000. And then when he instituted vaccine passports in the province, he's like, I'm keeping Nova Scotians safe. You know what I mean? Yeah. He's just got such a smug, smarmy attitude when he does these things.
He's a progressive. It couldn't be clearer. And that's why he says things like, the Poilievre team didn't reach out to them for advice on how to be better conservatives and get elected. And he goes to parties with Slug Ford and all of their liberal friends. I can't even remember who was in that picture now, but I think wasn't Chrystia Freeland one of them?
Yeah, the whole gang was there pretty much, except for Justin Trudeau. Like all of Trudeau's former cabinet were, and Mark Carney were having a barbecue at Doug Ford's place. Like they're not even pretending anymore. Like this whole and that's exactly what's going on in Canada, and that's why I say that Mark Carney he probably had like the greatest strategists behind him, really. Like there's some really intelligent people at that are really good at social manipulation, like that managed to pull that recovery off. Because where we were at the end of 2024 was just like Poilievre was a shoo-in. You know what I mean? And it just the rug was completely pulled from under them.
Yeah, it was. I don't know. I wouldn't give them too much credit. It is kind of the same playbook that basically every dystopian novel and Old Testament story is trying to warn us about. And it was the 2 minutes of hate right out of Orwell's 1984, where in 1984 they put Goldstein's image on the telescreen and everybody's expected to stop what they're doing and just see that the telescreen and project all the blame and all their pain onto this image of Goldstein. And what is Goldstein but a dissident elite? And that's Donald Trump. Trump is Orange Goldstein. They ran the whole 2 minutes of hate psyop essentially, right up with the elbows up campaign. Fear, 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 war, war, war. It's the same thing that they've been doing, nonstop since 2020. It's like predictable and tired, if you ask me, but I think it's pretty dismaying to find out how many people in Canada just have not woken up to it. And in terms of what's going on with the Conservatives, I think we mentioned in text, he said something about, I've been kind of commenting on this quite a bit because Poilievre has a leadership review coming up in January. And the way I see it, like Angus Reid, according to Angus Reid, that came out in November, The parties are neck and neck. Like all the polls are showing the parties are neck and neck, but that's the parties. That's not the individual leaders. That's just the parties overall. And Angus Reid gave a net favorability rating for each leader. Carney was plus 13, and Poilievre was minus 26.
Yeah, I saw that too.
Yeah. Yeah, and you know, a lot of these guys, I think, who just kind of woke up when COVID hit, who are like big influencers now, like Mario and Moose on the Loose, and probably Trudeau voters. Like Mario was a Trudeau voter. That's how far behind the curve he is. And now, like, he broke up with Canada's boyfriend, Justin Trudeau. So his new boyfriend is Poilievre, and he has a 65% support rating within the CPC base itself. 65% of them want to stay on, but he is the only guy in Canadian history to go from leader of the opposition to a failed bid at prime minister back to leader of the opposition. And if he stays on, like, this will be unprecedented. It would be historic. And look at his favorability rating. Like, it's in the shitter. And Carney's walloping him by 39 points. Like, you can't ignore that. And people do vote for prime minister. A lot of people don't even know who their local guy is in this country. So, you know, just imagine what the CPC's numbers would be like if they had an electable leader. Like, they're neck and neck now. They're at about 40%, depending on the poll that you're looking at. This varies between about 38 to 41. But I mean, if Poilievre, if you flip those numbers around and Poilievre has Carney's plus 13 instead of the minus 26 that he has right now, like, the Conservatives would be absolutely destroying them. Like, that's how they get a majority, is with some fresh blood. I think, like, the old guard of the CPC establishment, they have to go. And Poilievre, honestly, like, he's a swamp creature if there ever was one. He's been in Ottawa his entire adult life, working in politics and being a politician. So that's all he's ever done. That's all he knows how to do. And I really liked him. I voted for him twice because I lived in his riding at my last posting in the military. And you know, I even let him put a lawn sign in my yard, knowing full well that you could be court-martialed for doing that. Because I thought the situation was so dire in 2019 that I was willing to do that. But I liked him when he was an attack dog, because that's what he is. He was always pretty robotic about it, to be honest. Like, you could see that this guy is a professional politician. But I liked him. I thought he was very good at what he did, and he would, you know, rise in the House of Commons. He would snap that top button on the blazer closed. Raise the sheet of paper in front of him, adjust the designer frames, draw in a breath, and then absolutely decimate, you know, the government, the opposition, whatever it was. He was really great at that. He was a really good MP. But prime minister, like, he's not really a leader. He's a follower. He's a poll watcher, and he voted for Bill C-4 to jail any parent who doesn't want to give their kid a sex change. And then he got out in front of the cameras after I, along with my co-organizers nationally, brought the 1 Million March for Children to his doorstep. He got out in front of the cameras and pretended like he didn't know anything about puberty blockers for minors. What are you guys talking about? He's like a political animal. It's just whichever direction the winds of change are blowing in, that is the direction that he's going to go in. So, like, that's not leadership. And I think, you know, he was good as an MP, but for prime minister, like, it's just not going to happen. And his favorability numbers don't support it either. Canadians don't like him. There was another poll that put him a little bit better, but he's still, I think, -5 in was it Abacus that just came out with another one in December? But he's still, I think
I know the one you're talking about. I think you're talking about the Main Street one. There's a lot of what's the word I'm looking for here? Copium. There's a lot of copium going around in, like, Pierre Poilievre support groups. Yes. Like, you know what I mean? Like other influencers, like much bigger YouTube channels than mine that seem to make their bread and butter off just, like, blindly supporting Poilievre no matter what he does.
I know.
And a lot of people are sharing this poll being like, don't believe the media, like, Poilievre is crushing it. But the thing about this mainstream poll, dude, is it sampled 1,000 people.
Yeah.
Not only that, but 1,000 people that answer phones and answer these things. So that's they managed to get 1,000 people to answer the phone, and it just so happened that more of those people favored Pierre Poilievre.
Yeah.
But like, I don't know about you, dude, but when I get a phone call from a number that I don't recognize, an obvious scam call,
Yeah.
most of the time I will answer it just to mess with like whatever Indian phone scammer it likely is. But like if it's like an actual legitimate poll, I just hang up. Like I don't pay attention to those things, right?
Just put it on mute and let them babble until they hang up. That's a good one to mess with them.
Yeah, but like as far as what you said about Pierre Poilievre, it would be unprecedented if he came out of this leadership review unscathed. You're absolutely right. I mean, like I'm not as old as you. I'm in my 30s, but like I've been following politics since I was a teenager, and you're absolutely right. I've never seen that. I've never seen somebody lose. Usually they walk off into the sunset and they're never seen again. Like, especially like after Aaron O'Toole was a huge disappointment, and I was really happy to see him go because, full disclosure, man, like I don't even consider myself a conservative, really. Like I don't.
I don't either.
If I were like, I've taken those like political compass tests, and like, believe it or not, I'm actually left of center on the traditional axis, but I'm way down there on like the libertarian side, right? And I think that's the most important thing anyways. It's not so much left and right. Like that's how they distract us. That's how they divide us. That's how they get us at each other's throats. The only thing that truly matters is libertarianism versus authoritarianism. Where you stand there?
Yeah, I mean that is the left and right to me. Like the extreme left is totalitarian and the extreme right is anarchist. So it's between authoritarianism and liberalism or libertarianism if you prefer. But I consider myself to be more like a classical liberal. Like I'm a Hayek man. I like Friedrich Hayek. I was radicalized by Ron Paul, around 2010 or something like that. I've done quite a bit of reading and stuff like that since then, and I'm settled on classical liberal at this point. And a lot of people find it to be, because I say right winger. I always say right winger. I embrace it. You won't hear the conservatives say that. They're progressive conservatives. They're on the left. A progressive is a socialist Democrat, and that is a left-wing perspective. Like socialist Democrats would include the Nazis, for example. They are progressives. They actually developed a lot of their approach to like handling Jews. Who counts as a Jew? Is it one drop of blood, like they did in the United States with apartheid? Those were the documents that they relied on to develop their policy. Was Jim Crow, United States, Southern apartheid. And Jim Crow was a Democrat. He was a progressive, right? So. Anyway, and you saw Chris D'Entremont. He said that he was a proud progressive conservative. And what did he do? He crossed the floor. He embraced his progressivism. And this has been the problem with the CPC since Harper left, is they've reverted to their progressive roots. So we don't have a left and right wing in Canadian politics anymore. We only have a left wing. And a plane needs two wings to fly. That's why we're in a death spiral. You won't hear the conservatives say that they are right wingers. They might say that they're right leaning. And I embrace it, and I say I'm a right winger. If you want to know like specifically, I would say I'm a Friedrich Hayek guy, so that makes me a classical liberal. A lot of people the libertarians try to claim Hayek, but he self-identified as a classical liberal. So that's where I'm at. I think of it in terms of the left is collectivist and the right is individualist. So I put individual rights before group rights. The thing about group rights is they tend to promote tribalization and drive balkanization and polarization within a society. And the best way to protect a group is to protect every individual within it. You protect the individuals, you protect the group. In a collectivist mindset, you are either an asset or a liability to the collective, and you don't want to be a liability to the collective, because that's when you get witch hunted and run roughshod. In an individualist worldview. Everybody has kind of their own individual contribution to make, and they are there. There's nobody who can decide what that should be better than the individual themselves. So that's what produces the best outcomes. The freer a society is, the more humans tend to flourish. So I think the best path to that is through individual rights and liberties.
Yeah, and when you brought up the fact that the Nazis were actually socialists, and on a true political spectrum, you would actually have them right over there next to the communists on the extreme left end of the spectrum. And that's why they were at each other's throats. They had the exact same ideology, the exact same worldview. They just had very different ways of executing it. And they were competing for their perfect socialist utopia. And it gets liberals so mad when you say that too. Because they're like, no, it wasn't. It just wasn't real socialism. You know what I mean? That's the line they always revert to.
And the communists do the same thing. It wasn't real communism. Anywhere else that it's ever been tried in the last 100 years that resulted in a total bloodbath, that was not real communism. And what they're doing is they're really confessing their own narcissism when they say things like this, because what they're actually saying is it would have worked if I were the dictator. If I were the dictator, then it would have been the utopia. Everywhere else where they tried it.
But that's exactly why it doesn't work. That, like what you just said there, exposes the entire problem with it, because like it actually sounds wonderful, like on paper. You know what I mean? Like if you could have this system where it actually sounds great, it sounds fantastic. Take care of everybody. Everybody looks out for each other. Everybody works when they can. Everyone pitches in. It sounds great, but it doesn't seem to be conducive with human nature. You know what I mean? Like every time you run an experiment and it just ends in starvation and death over and over again, then maybe that's just a sign that it wouldn't work.
And it's a secular religion. Like Marxism is a secular religion. And Marx was basically Luciferian. He used to quote the demon character from the Dr. Faustus play. The Faustian bargain, where you make the deal with the devil, essentially. And Mephistopheles was the demon character, and he used to quote him all the time and say, all that exists deserves to perish. So the pitch of the utopia, I think, is just the pitch. It really is supposed to be a society destroying ideology. Like it's an ideological pathogen, to borrow a term from Gad Saad, and that is Marx's design. Essentially, is to implode civilizations and just spread misery. He was a miserable, evil man who never had a job, just loused off of Friedrich Engels. Actually mooched money off him in a letter that he wrote to offer his condolences for the death of Engels' wife. That was when Engels cut ties with him. Probably raped his housemate, and they definitely had a son with him that he never took any credit for, and Engels ended up raising. Hated his father because his father was wildly successful, and Marx was kind of the big disappointment, just a layabout. And weak men bring hard times. I think he just hated the world. And he used to ride around in Paris in a donkey, like mocking Jesus and stuff like that. Just hated Christianity. So, and socialists, I think, more broadly, hated Christianity. Like, it is a secular religion. It competes with Christianity for that idea in the ideological battle space. And even like Antonio Gramsci was a socialist, a communist who was jailed by the fascists in Italy, and he wrote profusely in his prison notebooks. And one of the things that he said was that socialism is precisely the religion that must replace Christianity. And he talked about how they would do it by capturing the cultural hegemony, the schools, the media, the politics, gradually over time. And this idea of ideological subversion is also pervasive, like throughout communist thinking. The Frankfurt School in Germany was also pretty obsessed with it. The motto was Aufheben der Kultur, as in abolish their culture, cancel culture. That's where it comes from. And ideological subversion was, the active measures was something that the KGB actively engaged in for the purpose of gradually subverting us over generations. And what Yuri Bezmenov said was that they went into the schools in the post-World War II era and demoralized the kids, turned them against their own society. That would have been the boomer generation. And they are at peak institutional power right now. They run everything from, healthcare to universities to the press, the police, the military, and everything is in a scandal-plagued state of collapse. Even the post office collapsed at one point. Like, that wasn't Justin Trudeau that did that. That was somebody set that post office up like 150 years ago and forgot about it. It's been running like a clock ever since. So.
Yeah, and that's the thing too. When you mention, obviously, with Marxism and communism, it's how they succeeded. They subverted societies over generations, right? And that's exactly what we're seeing play out in Canada to this day, to my opinion. Justin Trudeau is responsible for a lot. Don't get me wrong. Like, there has been an acceleration over the last 10 years, no doubt. And that's why a lot of people are like really resonating with Pierre Poilievre's message. Myself included. He's woken a lot of people up for sure, but like, we can't pretend that these problems started with Justin Trudeau. Canada has been slowly circling the drain for a very long time, and now I think like we're getting to a point where we're almost at a critical mass with it.
Absolutely. It's been 81 years since D-Day. 81 years before that was Gettysburg, and 82 years before that was the colonial triumph at Yorktown, the climactic battle in the American Revolution. So there is this cycle of history, and it does turn on generations. Every 4 generations, we go into a crisis era. It's called a fourth turning. So it's the last fourth turning would have been the Second World War, and the one before that was the American Civil War, and the one before that was the American Revolution. And since the Second World War, there's been baby boomers, Gen X, millennial, now Gen Z, 4 generations, and here we are in a crisis era. And it started with the global financial collapse of 2008. The previous one started with the 29 stock collapse. And we saw like the institutions kind of fall like dominoes from 2008 onward. In 2010, we had the G20, where the police were very clearly militarized and have been since that time. And the universities started to go like completely haywire. The press went full commie, like just flagrant lies. I mean, they had kind of a bias throughout the 2010s. There's always been a bit of a liberal bias, but it got to be like way beyond in the 2010s. And that was right around the same time that you saw, Google, believe it or not, kids, Google, their motto used to be "Don't be evil" in the 2000s.
That's right. And they took that out, didn't they?
Yes, they did.
Yeah, I remember that when they removed that.
And they bought out Google, they bought out YouTube, that like monopolized the internet and imposed a censorship regime. So that all started like in the early 2010s. You could see it all ramping up. And actually, Bruce Cannon-Gibney, he's a Silicon Valley tycoon, like a investment guy, brilliant guy. He wrote a book. He was trying to figure out what happened to Silicon Valley. And in 2017, he published a book called A Generation of Sociopaths, How the Baby Boomers Betrayed America. Because that was the conclusion that he came to. He was like, what happened was the CEOs, the silent generation of CEOs, silent generation, like the Korean War veterans, those guys, silent generation, they retired, and the CEOs and the investment class that bought out all the corporations, it was the boomer generation. So they took over control, like with the investment class, and you see things like BlackRock now, where Larry Fink, baby boomer, he says, we want to force behavior. Bill Gates, like all these really creepy guys. Mind you, Klaus Schwab, he's a silent Jenner, but in a fourth turning, when the silent Jenners stick around and stay active, it tends to be a bad thing. It's like the Darth Sidious character in Star Wars. Star Wars is a fourth turning. So anyway, that's what's happening. And This is the year I mentioned, the 81 years since D-Day, because this is the year I think that it climaxes. I think there's probably more like a window. I'm not sure what Neil Howe puts it at, maybe plus or minus 2 years, but it probably, I think it probably peaks. It climaxes this year. So we're going to have a really rough year. Our economy is going to be completely devastated, I'm sure. And it's going to be 10 cities galore. But after the climax, things start to go back on the upswing, and the clock resets, and we go into the first turning. This is assuming we don't completely fall to tyranny between now and 2030. Around 2030, we should see things go back up on the upswing. New technologies, higher standards of living than the world has ever seen. And it's already happening. Like all of the technology that built the modern era, that we have lived with our entire lives, that was all developed in the previous fourth turning, the Second World War, like everything from...
Yeah, of course, the post-war boom.
Yeah, exactly. And so that's what's going to happen. And we're already seeing, like last time around, we got, radio telephony, basically cell phone. Like we have the radio telephony, we have the rocketry, radar, all the basics for the internet, all this stuff. It all came out of the previous fourth turning, and the technology has not fundamentally changed. All that really changed is the components got smaller and the networks got bigger and manufacturing got more refined, but like everything is conceptually the same. And we're already starting to see like new technologies come on the scene now that are going to, take us on the upswing again once we get on the other side of this thing, assuming there's something from which to rebuild by the time we get to 2030. So we have Bitcoin, the Bitcoin revolution. We have reusable rockets. We have the AI revolution. So it's already happening. We're already starting to see the revolutionary technologies emerge that are going to drive the next high, send us like next stage of the Enlightenment.
But as for that, the new technology being a high, I wanted to get your take actually on that concept, because unlike the post-World War II boom, I mean, yeah, we got some fantastic new technology, but all of that stuff created jobs, right? Because you still needed a bunch of workers to manufacture all these things with the new technology. But it seems like this latest boom is almost geared towards taking jobs away, right? Because artificial intelligence is actually going to take a lot of people's livelihoods away from them with just extreme automation and whatnot. And there's been whispers of like even Elon Musk, who is... I don't know what to think about that guy. I'd like to think he is on our side, because let's be honest, man, freedom of speech would not be where it is today if it wasn't for Elon Musk. Because during COVID, man, we were headed towards some dark times. I toyed around with starting this YouTube channel during COVID because I was mad at all the things I was being lied to about. And I was almost like, man, I should turn on my webcam and start talking about this. And then I started watching all my favorite channels and influencers get popped and have their stuff taken away and getting banned from social media. So I was like, what's the point? But Elon Musk, him buying Twitter really made me start to think that he's one of the good guys. But lately, he's actually been talking about how like universal basic income is going to be the only way that we're going to need to like be able to keep so many human beings alive on the planet. You know what I mean? Once AI starts taking all these jobs away. He's been tweeting out videos, which are obviously AI generated, which is hilarious in and of itself. But he tweeted out a video of like a robot chef, a robot police officer, a robot paramedic. You know what I mean? So what do you think is going to happen, though, when this technology really takes off and a lot of us aren't needed anymore?
But I mean, it's all happened before. I mean, the printing press put scribes out of business. Like, so there were a lot of people who used to, have good penmanship who would actually handwrite books and make copies of books. There were scribes. So that's an entire profession that doesn't exist anymore because of the printing press revolution. The assembly lines, they definitely there are a lot fewer people are required to run assembly lines. And, I could spend all night just kind of listing different ways that technology has displaced labor, I think. But we always adapt, and the population continues to grow. So I don't really, I'm not terribly concerned about that. I think the market is probably just going to sort that out. It's in every single era, go all the way back as far as you want. Like, every time we develop new technologies, there's a kind of labor that is no longer required. But technology has reliably and consistently improved our quality of life, our survivability, like 1,000%. So I don't really have the answers right now. It's kind of like I would need a crystal ball, I think, in this case, and I don't like to blow smoke. So I don't know, how we're going to sort it out, but I would say that the market will do it. And if there's one thing that human beings can do, it's adapt. We're like the most adaptable species on the planet.
Yeah, I suppose that's a good way to look at it. But as far as this like fourth turning goes, like you're thinking it's going to peak around 2030. So I don't know.
No,
So it's going to peak this year. So what do you think? The extent of it is going to be the economic collapse that we're seeing, or do you think we're going to see some sort of large scale war, to get some human beings through the meat grinder, so to speak? Because that seems to have been the way it's gone in generations past, right? And
absolutely.
are we seeing that right now in Israel and Gaza and Ukraine? Is that like the extent of
yeah.
So
it's more than that. Like the war has changed pretty dramatically. It looks a lot different right now. I think that World War II, like historians are going to look back and say that World War III started in 2020 with the COVID pandemic. I think it's just a lot more clandestine than it has been previously. And China is the center of gravity of this. And Sun Tzu said in The Art of War in the 5th century BC that the supreme art of war is to subdue the enemy without any fighting. So the Art of War got an upgrade in the 90s. There's a book on Amazon called Unrestricted Warfare. It's written by a couple of Chinese colonels, Qiao Lang and Wang Chengsu, leaked military documents, and they sketched out the whole plan for taking down the United States in particular. They watched them very carefully during the Iraq War and picked up a few things. And so it's basically every dirty trick in the book short of kinetic warfare. So, it's cyber, it's financial, economic, drug warfare, fentanyl. That's what the fentanyl crisis is all about. Like, the smuggling warfare, like everything. They do everything to every point of contact with the Chinese is essentially a means for them to harm us. And I think we've already taken more casualties in this war than all the wars of the 20th century combined. When you start stacking up, vaccine deaths and things like that, especially, like just homelessness and drugs. And so all of these things, I think, and Donald Trump seems to be hip to this, and he's really cracking down on it. But yeah, it's not just Ukraine. It's not just the Middle East. It's Africa. Like Africa, there's more conflict in Africa right now than there has been at any point since the end of the Second World War. It's every 4 generations, the world goes to war. Our experience with it is a little bit different this time because of that clandestine adversary that I think we're up against right now. Russia's getting in on the mix too. Like some of this stuff is the psychological warfare and things like that, the subversion, and they hit us really hard in cyberspace as well. They're a little bit different the way that they do it than they tend to use a lot of non-state actors and things like that, whereas the Chinese have command centers and whatnot. But they're very active here in Canada. The IRGC is very active in Canada, the Muslim Brotherhood, and the communists have always allied with the Islamists, and same thing with the Nazis. The Nazis were allied with the Islamists in the Second World War. That's basically what it came down to in the Middle East. The Jews were on the side of the Allies, and the Muslims were on the side of the Axis powers. And now they all live together in the Middle East, so it's not hard to see what's going on there. But yeah, everything heats up every 4 generations, and kind of like a lot of the residual issues. We see the same factions. The Antifa, they originate in Italy. They're everybody to the right of Stalin is essentially a fascist in their eyes. So
yeah, but I mean, like the quote unquote like the Antifa back in Italy, like they were actually fighting like real bad guys, like real Nazis, right? But like, yeah, no, like the people that call themselves Antifa today are like, you know what I mean? They'll like throw rocks at a college professor they don't agree with. They'll hunt them down with a baseball bat. You know what I mean? It's not really the same thing.
No, I mean they're wannabes. You know,
Yeah.
they're pretty sad.
But what you said about historians looking back at this time, and because I've often sort of had the same thought as well, and my opinion has evolved about it over time. But historians will look back at 2020 as the start of World War III. I find that a very interesting perspective because I'm thinking back to when COVID. I mean, COVID ended to me in the spring of 2020 once I understood like more about the virus and how badly we were being lied to. But for a lot of people, COVID ended in February of 2022.
Yeah.
Shortly after the Freedom Convoy. And which is hilarious because a lot of these same people who like they were masked up, they were making you feel like a piece of shit if you didn't believe in the restrictions. All of a sudden, right around the time that the Ukraine war popped off, like they didn't even wait 2 weeks to roll out the next thing. You know what I mean? All of a sudden, governments around the world dropped the restrictions, vaccine passports were gone. Everybody was like, you know, they just realized it didn't matter if you had 2 shots, 3 shots, you're going to get COVID and you're going to be fine. And then all of a sudden, everybody just stopped caring, and all of a sudden, Ukraine was in the news. Russia had just invaded Ukraine. They didn't even wait a couple weeks to roll out the next thing, you know? It was really strange just going from one operation to the other.
It's a polycrisis. And, you know, there was a Second World War, I learned in school, because of a failure in diplomacy. You know, there was the whole Treaty of Versailles after the First World War, and they, you know, Germany ended up taking all the blame, and they didn't like that. And, you know, it was, I think it's widely seen as pretty unfair to Germany, the Treaty of Versailles.
Well, of course, that's exactly what led to Hitler's rise. Like just the way, you know, the rest of Western Europe like stomped down on them.
Yeah, they destroyed their currency, like created desperation, these kinds of things. So there was a failure in diplomacy that led to the Second World War, and that's what we're seeing is the same generational archetype that's at peak institutional power. Like the boomers are the same generational archetype as Stalin, and we live like in Stalinism. Like, you know, you do not believe your lying eyes. You can show them in writing, like it says right here that we have rights, and they'll be like, that's not what that says. There must be something wrong with you. It's really just about kind of getting their way. It's the Hillary Clintons of the world, you know, where there was the whole Russian reset during her tenure as Secretary of State, because she was just a terrible negotiator. You know, and an awful woman. So she could not engage in diplomacy, and really soured relations. They were in the G8 for crying out loud at one point, Russia. I'm not saying that they're good guys. They're not, like, they're adversaries, but they're kind of like a trusted adversary. You know, they've been good stewards of the nuclear arsenal, and the U.S. gave them smallpox at one point, and they've been good stewards of that. They're still shady as F, but you know, and always trying to kind of pull the wool over our eyes. But it's about like moderating. This is an intergenerational effort to kind of get everybody working together. So, but you know, with Hillary Clinton and with the boomers more broadly, they will just burn it all down if they're not getting their way. So I think that's what we're seeing across the board. It's just a failure to communicate and a failure to make any concessions. You know, they won't concede anything about COVID. Obviously, we're never going to get any closure on that. And just even things like the Port-au-Pit massacre, where we don't get to have a public inquiry into that. The RCMP investigated themselves and determined that there was nothing to see here. And look what they did with it. They tried to politicize it. They corrupted it. Where Brenda Lucki was in league with Bill Blair to, you know, exploit that crisis so they could implement the gun grab that they just attempted in Cape Breton. So it's just, you know, kind of corrupt and I think fundamentally authoritarian, this the boss is always right. Like that was my experience in the military with them, and it was them. They were the ones who destroyed the military and scandalized it their whole careers. Like everybody, everywhere from the Somalia affair to the serial killer colonel to the grab ass and gaslighting generals. The only thing that really changed is that they got older, but they're still the same people, and now they're in charge of everything.
Yeah, and back to Portapeak for a second, because so much has happened in the last 5 and 6 years. It's almost hard to keep track of it, but that was disgusting when because like everybody in the province was horrified. It was obviously a tragedy, and just to see Justin Trudeau, he couldn't wait to get on TV. The bodies weren't even cold yet. Most people didn't even understand what was happening, and he was just there saying like, "Oh, we need to get rid of these guns." You know what I mean? And of course, yeah, nobody likes gun violence. Of course, it's a problem. But for him to just clamp down on legal gun owners like that, when it came out that Denture boy, what was his name, Wortman?
Mm-hmm.
Yeah, it turns out that he had like an armory of illegal guns from the States.
And a replica RCMP car and uniform and the whole shebang. So we still don't know what that was all about. We don't really know anything more than we did right after the massacre. For what came out of that, it wasn't an inquiry. What did they call it? It was like they just had some hearings and stuff, but it was a dog and pony show.
Yeah, the RCMP car has got to be the creepiest aspect of that, because, like, what is the purpose of that vehicle? Was he building that thing just for this event, or had it been used before in different crimes or different operations? And there was that really, really strange detail about the case where he collected a duffel bag of, like, it was almost $500,000 in cash, right? And it was it's been a long time. Maybe you can fill in the details here, but the gist of it was the way he got this money. It was essentially like the same process that an informant would get paid, right?
It was through a Brinks outlet.
Thank you. Yes, that's not open to the public. Like nobody, like I can't just go open an account there as a private citizen, right?
Yeah. Well, I don't know about that. I think it's pretty easy to transfer money through Brinks, but it's you can do it anonymously, and you just drop it off and somebody else picks it up, and so that is a known modus operandi for RCMP to pay their confidential informants. And he picked up $475,000 in cash in a duffel bag the day before he went on the massacre. We still don't know who paid him. I said this at a town hall, actually, because we had this protest out here in Cape Breton at the cop shop, and the CCFR, Tracy Wilson, came down, and so did a bunch of conservatives. Blaine Calkins, he's a conservative MP from Alberta. He came down, and Anna Manley was out there, and they made it like a conservative rally or something like that. I was a little bit annoyed, quite frankly, but anyway, I made it a point to get up at the town hall to the mic and sort of make a statement, and in the form of a question. Of course, it's that's what politicians do, really. Like it's like Jeopardy. You make a statement in the form of a question. So I got up there and I pointed out. I was like, we still don't know what it is. Well, I framed it in the context of like a communist coup, the global communist coup, where the issue is never the issue. The issue is always the revolution. What the problem that I see is that, say, like the CCFR and the CPC, they accept, just like progressive conservatives always do, they accept all of the progressive premises, like carbon is a pollutant, gender is a social construct, and firearms are just for hobbies. And, firearms are not for hobbies, they're for survival. It's the kind of thing that you want to have and not need it, but you don't want to need and not have it. If China, worst case scenario, of course, but this is something that they're exploring, or that they have a con-op for. If China were to detonate a nuke in the upper atmosphere, it would, set off an EMP that would take out everything that runs on electricity in North America. And I mean, unless we have millions of transformers ready to go in a Faraday cage somewhere,
We don't.
It's going to take decades. Yeah, we don't. It's going to take us decades to claw our way back out of the Stone Age. But your gun will work, so you'll be glad that you have it, right? And the progressives, the conservatives, and the CCFR, they're always making the argument that it's about sports, that it's about hunting, that it's about shooting competitions and stuff like that. And it's like, no, it's like they're asking to take your fire extinguisher or your first aid kit. What kind of who tells you shouldn't be allowed to have that fire extinguisher because we have a fire department? Give me your fire extinguisher or give me your first aid kit. We already have EMT services. You don't need that first aid kit. So that's what's really creepy about it, and that's what's nobody's talking about. And my sign at the protest had, Mao, Stalin, Pol Pot, Hitler. They all confiscated guns. And they all had body counts in the tens of millions. So this is, it's a precursor for genocide. So let's not go there. But nobody else is willing to make that argument, I'm afraid.
Yeah, for sure. I mean, I guess to play devil's advocate, though, when the conservatives say that, they'll stick up for gun rights when in terms of hunting, I guess if you want to mince words with it, sure, hunting could be survival. But, yeah.
And, looming food crisis here. So I hope you got your emergency supply, everybody. This is the year.
Yeah, it's getting harder and harder just to live. It's the way it is, actually. I just had a tooth pulled. You know what I mean? Because the last 5 years have been really hard financially. You know what I mean? Like a lot of people. So when it comes to giving my children clothing, paying for the roof over our head, buying food versus my teeth, well, my family's going to win every time, right? So, yeah, it's tough out there, man, for sure. And there was that report, too, that the RCMP put out 2 years ago that basically warned that we are heading into a time of, potential economic collapse and civil unrest. You know what I mean? They're talking about Canadians actually going out into the woods to forage for food.
Yeah, they said by 2040 we'll have to hunt illegally for food. So, and the conservatives could stand on that and say, look, we need to let these people keep their guns because they're going to need them to eat by 2040. We have a government report that says as much.
Well, that's the thing, because I don't think Poilievre has spoken on that, but there have been a few backbenchers that have brought this up, that have mentioned it. I think Andrew Lawton might have brought it up. But, you're right about the leadership review coming out. It would be very strange. It would be unprecedented if he kept his position as leader of the opposition. So if you were a betting man, what would you say? Do you think he's going to get it? Or do you think they're going to,
Yeah, okay. That's what the data would indicate. I mean, 65% support. Like I said, it's unprecedented, but I'm calling attention to this now because it looks like another Trudeau cult to me. Are these Trudeau maniacs? Because I know Mario, he has been shamelessly gargling Pierre for, years now. And he still is. And they're acting like it's still an election or something. Look at these polls. We got them now. What are you talking about? We just had an election. There's no looming election here, guys. You're acting like there's a looming election. Here, when I try to talk about it, Pierre Poilievre, criticize him, these people are probably the worst. I've been dragged by Trantifa, Diagolon, the woke right, and now the CPC. And I got to say, the CPC, they're sick, man. They're terrible. Especially with what I'm coming out with, because I was on James O'Keefe and I told my story about my experience with my daughter in gender ideology. She's 22 and just had her breasts removed. And, it's the hardest damn thing I've ever had to go through. And here I am, talking about this because Pierre Poilievre voted for Bill C4 because he was my MP, and I called him and talked to him on the phone for half an hour about what was going on at the Children's Hospital of Eastern Ontario. I was talking my daughter while I was in Iraq, no less, calling her phone directly, and he didn't even bat an eye, and he went out and voted for Bill C4 to jail any parent who doesn't want to give their kid a sex change, without even missing a beat. And like somebody like Moose on the Loose, David there, he'll come on my page and say, why would anybody criticize Pierre Poilievre at a time like this? Carney is robbing us blind. And I'm like, yeah, well, we better get him out of there. And the only reason that he's in there now is because your leader does not appeal to Canadians. He has a negative 26 net approval rating. So get somebody that people like, and then you'll get your goddamn majority, for crying out loud.
Yeah. So when you said Moose on the Loose came on your page and said, "How dare you criticize him at a time like this?" Was this during the election or after?
No, this was a couple of weeks ago.
Okay. Yeah. People really are acting like an election is imminent, and I know I don't want to shit on anybody because I know everybody means well. We all want what's best for Canada, in our own way. But to the same point, at a certain point, you just have to sort of regroup, re-strategize, admit defeat a little bit. And, I understand his point that, we do need to go after Carney. But at the same time, is Pierre Poilievre just a losing horse? Are we going to do this again?
Well, I think so. I'm looking at his numbers. It's and that's what I keep citing. But they just, people will say I have a personal stake in this, and that's true. I hate the guy. I absolutely hate him. But the data are what they are. So then his numbers are really bad. Him, not the party. The party is doing really well. They're neck and neck with the Liberals all the time, consistently. But what I'm saying is, could you just imagine if you had a leader, because most Canadians actually do vote for their prime minister and barely even know the local guy, if you had a guy that people liked. I mean, his numbers say that Canadians don't like him. So get somebody the Canadians like, and you'll get your majority, right? But no, it's all Pierre. It's a freaking cult. And I know that Mario, he's in the cult, and he was a Trudeau voter, for crying out loud. So I'm kind of wondering now. I'm are these all reformed Trudeau voters now? Are these Trudeau maniacs turned Bluto maniacs, or
well,
what?
Full disclosure, I did vote for Trudeau in 2015 because I wanted legal weed.
Yeah.
So he got me. But Jesus Christ, by the end of 2015, I was like, what have we done? I think it was only a couple of months when, because that 2015, that was right around the time when woke ideology and the culture war really started to ramp up, and it had been going on in the States for maybe a year prior to that, but it really started to ramp up here. You had everything that happened with Jordan Peterson, and I think it was later on that year, his first year, when he was on that college, Trudeau was on a college campus, and some young lady asked him a question, and she used the phrase mankind, and he sort of put his hand up and he said, no, we don't like to say that here. We like to be inclusive. We like to say people kind. It was just kind of facepalm, and we hadn't even gotten the weed yet, by the way. So at that point, I was like, oh, God, what have we done?
Yeah.
It's
an embarrassment. Oh, my God. It's 10 years of humiliation for Canada. We're no longer respected on the world stage, and no longer trusted, because we're a proxy for China. I call them the Chinese Communist Liberal Party of Canada. And we just saw Michael Ma across the floor. He was a plant, pretty clearly. He was hanging out with all the, rubbing elbows with all the United Front guys, all these different United Front groups. And Senator Victor O, the guy who said we need to set up a legal fund to sue messy reporters who smear Chinese, talking about Sam Cooper, writing about Chinese interference, especially Vincent Ke's facilitation of what was it? They stole the nomination for Han Dong in Don Valley North at that time. So it's
Well,
all
yeah,
CCP.
and that was the exact same riding where there was that upset about there's so many scandals I can hardly keep their names straight in my head. But you had that conservative MP who was like of Chinese descent again, and he actually had like a bounty on him back in Hong Kong. Like he can't go back. You know what I mean? And you had the Liberal MP at the time who was running basically said like, hey guys, there's like a bounty on him. You should capture him. Like, I don't know if he was just saying this in jest or something, but it was absolutely crazy to hear that sort of like discourse in Canada.
Yeah,
you know what I mean?
Paul Chang was the
Thank you.
Liberal
Yes.
MP.
And Tay. Was it Tay?
Joe Tay, yeah.
Yeah.
Joe Tay had the bounty on him. It was $1 million.
Yeah.
And he told the diaspora that they should turn him into the consulate to get the $1 million bounty.
Yeah, so like that's my point exactly. This is the same riding. You know what I mean? And you have like, I'm not trying to like stereotype or say certain things, but like it's very interesting that your next MP is Chinese, and then he just like magically decides to cross the floor to give the party that the CPP clearly favors, get them closer to a majority.
It's worse than that. Markham, as I understand it, actually, there are two ridings in Markham. There's like Markham Unionville and Markham something else. And Markham Unionville is where this just happened. But in the other one, that's where Paul Chang and Vincent Ke, where that happened. And Carney excused Paul Chang and said, oh, no, he just made a mistake. Like, there's no repercussions, no investigation, no nothing. Then he puts another guy in there. I can't even remember his name, but he donned a Chinese military uniform and got out and sang like, oh, my China, or what, I don't know the name of the song, but it was, he sang that in Mandarin for presumably an audience of United Front. And that was Paul Chang's replacement. And so, and then, this happens with Michael Ma crossing the floor, like pretty clearly a CCP plant. And Markham is actually the exact locale that Sam Cooper believes is home to the international headquarters for the Big Circle Boys, the biggest of all the ethnic triads, the Chinese ethnic triads, the guys, and the ethnic triads, the guys who are bringing all the fentanyl and human trafficking and the like. We know that they take direction from Chinese intelligence. Basically, they when they get to be big fish in Hong Kong, they'll be approached by Chinese intelligence and told, you got to take your operations over to Canada now and launder your money there so it doesn't hurt our economy. This is part of their warfare. Basically, they flood us with fentanyl and launder cash and use our real estate market to launder a lot of cash, and that drives up our prices. And then they start getting into this game where they're deliberately driving up our prices and just selling to each other in certain neighborhoods to really inflate the market and just kind of mess with us. So all kinds of bad stuff. And Markham is a real centerpiece in this picture.
Wow. Yeah, that's absolutely crazy, man. Like, it just, at a certain point, I start to wonder, can there be a political solution to this?
Yeah. The Americans pulled it off, and, Argentina, they went through a whole, like several decades of struggling with socialism and the like, and they pulled themselves out of it. Chile, they've famously pulled themselves out of it through General Pinochet, with him disappearing communists and dropping them out of helicopters over the ocean for everybody to see.
Oh, for sure. But United States aside, when you're talking about these like areas and countries in South America that have successfully gotten out of these communist regimes, they all have one thing in common, and that is that they really had to go through the shit to get there, right? Things had to get really bad. You had to get to the point where people were eating the dogs, you know what I mean? Like, literally, like, it got to the point where people were starving and they were eating their pets and just doing some really desperate shit to survive, right? And Canada, as bad as things are right now, we're not there yet. Most of the Laurentian elite are very comfortable. most of the boomers who already own property are very comfortable.
Yeah.
I'm actually not doing too bad myself. Like, I don't have a high income, far from it. My wife's not working right now. But like, the big difference is we were able to buy a house in 2014, one that we could afford. You know what I mean? So like, my rent has been the exact same since 2014. And I can't say the same for a lot of people my age. You know what I mean? Like, Canadians are going to have to go through it, I think, before we wake up.
Yeah. I think things are going to have to get worse before they get better, I'm afraid. I don't know. You know, the thing that I keep saying, though, is there's a lot of black pillars out there who are just saying, like, Canada is done. Like, look at the demographics, you know, because of massive migration. Look at the economics, the fiscal outlook, and this kind of thing. But the thing is, like, we could turn it around on a dime if we just decided to. You know, if we just cut off all of these migrants, I don't mean like, you know, immigrants that went through like a legitimate application process and they're all screened in and they're working and, you know, contributing and productive and law abiding. I'm not talking about that. I'm talking about like the mass immigration through the Trudeau years, especially starting in 2020 when we were all locked down, when they really started driving migration to Canada. Like, we're paying people to sit around in hotels plotting terrorist attacks. If we just cut them off, they'll either go home or they'll move on to some other sucker. You know, and if we just reformed immigration, like a permanent resident needs to mean something. You're a permanent resident. You're like a probie, and if you commit any serious crimes, like, you're out of here. You know, your kids born and raised here, they can vote, but you know, you're allowed to pay taxes and work, and you know, you can live a happy and productive life here. But you don't get to vote. This is a vulnerability that we need to shore up. And like, we can see, like, our elections are very vulnerable. So we could clean up the migration. There would probably take a task force like CBSA, CSIS, RCMP, and the military. We'd probably want some help from the U.S. as well with that, because our, you know, CBSA and RCMP in particular are so corrupt that, like, they're in on it. The CBSA is in on the Chinese subversion. So we would probably need some help with that, but we could clean that up, and we just got to turn on our natural resources. That's it. Like, if we just turned on our natural resources, like, we have all the oil and gas and water and minerals, we have rare earth, we have it all, but we're not even in this pact, like, with the Americans to secure rare earth metals. They have Australia's in there. They have, you know, all kinds of countries in this pact to offset China. Why are we not in there? Well, it's because we're allied with China.
We're not in there because, from what I can tell, this government is doing everything in its power to exacerbate the trade war with the United States. That's all it comes down to. We're literally sabotaging ourselves with glee, it seems. And it's just absolutely crazy to me that just the average citizen is just, they think it's great. They think it's wonderful. Like, our elbows are supposed to be up. Like, another Nova Scotian thing. Like, I was quite happy a couple of weeks ago. I wasn't happy with Tim Houston, obviously, but, you know, he made the announcement that, oh yeah, you know, we're getting rid of the American booze. You're going to finally be allowed to buy what we've been sitting on and let collect dust in the warehouse. Not because we're going to, you know, allow people to make their own decisions on what they'd like to purchase. No, but because, you know, they already bought the product, it's going to expire, and we have a lot of people that rely on food banks. So let's do something nice around Christmas. You know, you can go to the NSLC, you can buy some Jack Daniels, and it will go to feed Nova Scotia, right? So people are really happy about stuff like this. Like, they actually think that boycotting American booze, and it's working, by the way. I've seen some news reports out of the States, like, you know, like, the Canadians, like, we buy a lot of booze from America. Like, it's actually hurting them. But, like, it's not hurting Donald Trump. You know what I mean? It's hurting people that have a job at a bottling plant. You know what I mean? And everybody just thinks this is great. We're doing everything in our power to sabotage our relationship with the United States.
Well, I think we've solved the identity crisis anyway. We're a very petty people, apparently. That seems to be the Canadian identity. We're petty. I'm heartbroken and sickened with the whole thing. They booed wounded American veterans walking out at the Invictus Games in BC. When all of this was going down. It's just heartbreaking. And who the hell is Mark Carney to tell me I can't be brothers in arms with the Americans anymore? Are you kidding me? And yeah, I mean, I went to the liquor store and there was the guy. I was like, "Oh, you have Kraken back on the shelf?" And he's like, "Oh, yeah." And he told me the same thing that you just said about the Feed Nova Scotia. They're going to donate the proceeds, and then he threw something in there like, "Yeah, we don't want to be buying from those guys." And I was like, "Well, I do. Right? I didn't sign up for this. Like, why am I being punished? I can't. I can't buy it."
Your perspective is a lot different than mine because, like, don't get me wrong. I hear and feel what you're saying totally, but dude, you literally, like, you fought alongside these people, right? Like,
yeah,
in Afghanistan and Iraq, like.
Yeah, I was an electronics specialist. I wasn't a fighting trade. I was a support trade, but yeah, I mean, they're my brothers in arms. I lived in Florida for 4 years working with NORAD. I worked on the base. Like, everybody in my office was American, except for like one other guy who was also Canadian. NORAD is the only permanent binational military command structure in the history of the world. Like, no two nations have ever been closer friends and allies than Canada and the United States. And because Mark Carney, China's Manchurian candidate, like, for crying out loud, he when he was governor of the Bank of England, they brokered a deal with the Bank of China, between the Bank of China and the Bank of England, and Brookfield is heavily invested in their green tech. They have the market cornered on green tech. That's where we're always being propagandized to buy green tech and go green. So China can make money off it. And they do use it to generate power. They are power, like, energy starved. And they get to sell us all this crap, and Mark Carney will jam it down on us. Well, he's still invested in oil in the United States, Nigeria, and Brazil. But if our oil gets to market, then that'll depreciate his assets and he'll be less rich. But if he keeps it in the ground, then he'll be more rich. So pretty sure, like, all the interests, that's how the Chinese operate. Like, they just get our elites' interests aligned with theirs a lot of the time. And they don't even know they're being subverted. They're just greedy assholes like Mark Carney. And we're getting screwed. It's and they're polarizing us against the Americans because it is, China versus America here in World War III. Well, there's Axis powers and there are allied powers again. But it serves China's interests, of course, that they would polarize us against the United States so they can continue using our territory to launch hybrid warfare attacks into the U.S. I mean, we had a couple of ISIS guys just plotting terrorist attacks down in the U.S. We have all the fentanyl that's, through the port of Vancouver. They only scan about 1% of their containers, and that's all going into the Pacific seaboard of the United States, the Northwest. And our land border with them, is not patrolled effectively. Where is the border czar? Weren't we supposed to have a border czar and a fentanyl czar? Do you know who they are?
Well, Trudeau made that announcement. I think he was. I think that was just more of a show. Yeah, he was sort of like, he was panicking a little bit, and he was trying to give the optics that we were doing something. I think they put a couple of Sea Kings in the air just for a photo op.
Yeah, that's about it. They're not doing anything. And Kash Patel is on the record saying, like, nothing is coming through the southern border anymore. Whatever fentanyl is coming into the United States now is coming from Canada. So they have every right to be pissed with us. And this is what they're trying to address. They just want us to address, immigration, border, the drugs, and supply management. Like, supply management is a holdover from Trump's first term as well. All of these things would be beneficial to us as well, by the way.
I happen to think that the fentanyl thing is sort of overblown a little bit. Like, I really don't think as much of it is getting out of our country into the States, as the Trump administration likes to portray. But everything else that you just said, it's becoming really obvious why they're targeting us. Like you said, like the supply management, everything that they came out with last week, like their notice fentanyl wasn't on their demands. Now they're really starting to like to show their hand what they want. They want to get rid of supply management. They want to get rid of our ridiculous digital services. No, the digital service tax is already gone. Carney capitulated on that already. The Online Streaming Act. And actually, I'd like to see the Americans talk a little bit about Bill C-18, the online news thing, right? It's interesting they haven't brought that up because we're essentially extorting American tech companies in order to just do the normal things that that these tech companies do, right?
Is that the link tax?
Yeah, exactly. The reason you can't share news articles on Facebook.
Yeah.
You know what I mean? It's absolutely preposterous. And you hit the nail on the head earlier when you were talking about what countries took the guns. You know what I mean? Hitler, Stalin, Mao, what do they all have in common? They took the guns. Well, the modern version of that, dude, is what countries in the world right now censor citizens from sharing news stories online. You got China, you got North Korea, you got the Weimar Republic, and you have Canada. You know what I mean? So we're on the list with those people. It's not good.
Yeah, I mean, because we don't usually think of them as having their shit together. So
no,
that's the company in which we find ourselves.
And that's exactly the point of this, man. It's not about protecting Canadian news outlets and like smaller Canadian publishers. That's absurd. It doesn't make any sense. Because like when you share something that was written by like before when you could actually just share a link on the internet, you have the link, you put it up on your profile, somebody clicks it, and it drives traffic to their site, right?
Yes.
Yeah.
No, it was all BS from the start. I have to think that the purpose was to keep us from sharing news on Facebook.
It's not just sharing news, because obviously you can you could take a screenshot, you can get around it, but they didn't want people discussing things in the comments. That's what it's really about, right? Because you had, CBC, CTV, Global, they all have a presence. And it was right around the time that COVID got launched, right? They're just like, oh, we can't have people talking in the comments. You know what I mean? Because that's when it happened. That's when they took this ability, like right around the time that there literally wasn't a town square, because we can't go to the town square because it's closed. We have to social distance. Everybody's at home. They don't want people bored on their phones, scrolling around, talking about how badly we're getting fucked.
Yeah, I think it was a bit after COVID, but like after the convoy and everything. But I think they saw what happened at the convoy, and that I think is really kind of the tragedy. That's one of the big tragedies of history right now. Of this crisis. Not to downplay the mass death, pardon me, but one thing was there was a lot of footage from the convoy, especially during the initial crackdown, that has just been memory hold. It's lost to history. And I was there. Holding the line. I was like, Chris Deering was the veteran who got stopped by the cops. He was right on my my left arm. Like I was, it was like very dramatic where I was holding his hand. I was trying to, they were pulling him in and putting him down on the ground, and they were kneeing and kicking him and stuff. And anyway, I yelled at them, and that actually made Globalist News. And that was the footage that they censored from the Public Order Emergencies Commission live stream. They actually blacked out the feed of that. So there was a lot that happened right there during the initial crackdown. Chris gave multiple, very impassioned speeches, as did I, as did others. And it was like, man, oh man, like the people there, the protesters, really rose to the occasion. When I saw Chris go down, that was when it really kind of hit me, in my stomach. Like, this is not the country that I signed up to serve. It was like I knew it, cerebrally, intellectually, I knew it, but it didn't really hit home until I saw that. That was a really sad day. It was like the best of times, and it was the worst of times. Like the speeches, the whole lead up during the crackdown, It was some of the most amazing stuff I've ever seen. And then, some of the most sick and saddening stuff I've ever seen when they really started stomping people. So, but there was so much. I mean, I even saw it on YouTube, but by the time I got a chance to screen cap it, it was already gone. I didn't record. I guess that's what I get for being cocky. But it's just there was more cameras than there were protesters. I thought to myself, I think it's covered. So, yeah, I mean, and it's all gone. I can't believe it.
Yeah, just absolutely memory hold. There's one clip that I still have saved on my computer, and I don't know how out there it is on the internet, but it just completely shatters the narrative that the mainstream media likes to portray about the Freedom Convoy, and that was it was right on Parliament Hill, like where all the people were gathered, like right in front of the tower. And there was somebody walking through the crowd, and he had like a professionally done up flag. You know what I mean? It was a big Confederate flag.
Oh yeah.
And it had it had a truck in the middle, and he had I don't know, he appeared to be wearing militarized police boots. You know what I mean? Like, he was very well dressed. Of course, he had a balaclava. He was covering his face, and he's walking around doing the rounds, and everybody's just stepping away from him like he's radioactive. You know what I mean? And he's just trying to rile people up. Excuse me. And people start calling him out. They're like, get out of here. You know what I mean? They start calling him a Fed. And then he's just starting to look really nervous. And then this one guy just goes, yeah, he knows. Get out of here. And then he just literally books it out of there.
Yeah.
And I think this was just a couple of days after the infamous flag, the Nazi flag that, just one isolated group way away from everybody else. What was the name of the hotel that the RCMP was staying at? It's
Chateau Laurier.
Yeah, that's the one. Yeah, just conveniently just down the courtyard from that, right?
It was at the Chateau Laurier. They were standing on the steps of the Chateau Laurier with that Nazi flag. And the camera angle on it, the person who took that shot had to be standing on the ground by the canal at the bottom of the stairs. So, I mean, it was the protest was all up on the street, and there's this bridge that goes over the canal, and that's where Chateau Laurier is on the other side of the bridge. Like, if you're walking from Parliament to Chateau Laurier, there's the bridge, and she would have to be, or the photographer, whoever it was, would have to be under that bridge, not where the protest is up on the street, but down under the bridge, taking the shot of the Nazi flag holder on the back steps of Chateau Laurier, not even at the protest. I did a live stream one time where I was comparing. It was when you remember when Uncle Fester assaulted David Menzies for trying to ask Chrystia Freeland a question while she was walking. Well,
yeah.
I when that happened, I remember I took Uncle Fester and I put him next to the guy with the Nazi flag because it's grainy and it's from a distance. But I'm like, look at this. This is this bald Uncle Fester looking guy, and he's got a tie on and everything. So it's basically the same suit. What do you think? Definitely Feds. Whoever it was, I would say it was absolutely the Feds. But it was a total setup. And that stuff, we had footage of that guy walking around with the Confederate flag. That was online, and none of that stuff made it on any of the mainstream news. They talked about the flag. They would show the picture that Justin Trudeau's photographer took from a distance of the flag in the middle of the crowd. But they didn't show any of that footage that you just mentioned where people were telling them to get away.
But it worked. That's the thing. This is the propaganda that they rolled out, and I don't think it's tinfoil hat. I don't think it's conspiratorial to speculate on were these people Feds, because that's the only photo of them, and they just happen to be at the same hotel that the RCMP was staying at. I don't think it's a stretch to say that was a literal false flag. But that is the narrative that people went with. Your average Canadian normie, that informed their opinion of the entire protest. And then it just didn't matter.
And dude, I think the police as well. That's another component that I think that's overlooked. I said it on the stand at my trial for my charges from the convoy, but But yeah, they took a page out of Tiananmen Square, and they brought in the police forces for the crackdown were overwhelmingly from out of town. They were not OPS. Some of the guys who arrested me were from Vancouver, and OPP. So it was this joint police operation that involved forces from all over Canada. I remember they even had the guys in the green bunny suits, Northern Quebecois. People said they were UN troops. I was like, the UN doesn't have any troops. They were like somewhere from Northern Quebec, I'm sure. But they brought all these police forces from outside of Ottawa who didn't have situational awareness or intelligence, direct intelligence from the ground. They weren't down there mingling amongst the protesters, getting hugs. I watched them do it the whole time I was there. They were hugging protesters. They brought in everybody who, their entire outlook on the situation was informed by the propaganda. So they thought, just like in Tiananmen Square, when they thought they were coming in to stomp a bunch of terrorists, that's what these Canadian police forces thought coming into Ottawa, that they were coming there to stomp Nazis.
Yeah, of course. And not only that, but I don't think they had the local police force that were willing to do it. That's another problem. They sure as hell didn't have the local towing companies that were willing to do it. They basically had to force them, like under the Emergencies Act, right?
And they had to get a new police chief just to carry it out, for crying out loud. Because Slowly was the police chief the whole time. And the guy who actually gave the order and actually got on the news and said, we're going to come after everybody and we're going to sanction you if you participate in this protest, if you donate to this protest. That was Steve Bell, Tinkerbell. They call him Tinkerbell because I guess he let his partner get the shit kicked out of him by a biker sometime while he hid in the car. And his partner ended up in the hospital when he was like a lower rank, a cop, a beat cop or something. So, anyway, yeah, they actually had to change the police chief and everything. Nobody wanted to go through with this. And it was just astonishing to me to be on the other side of it and see how many Canadians still supported it, even when there was so much flagrant corruption throughout. And it's already been declared ultra vires by a federal court that the Emergency Measures Act invocation was illegal. So, and people still support it. It's amazing.
Yeah, and just like what we saw with dovetailing back into what's going on in the province with like Tim Houston and the cannabis, like at what point do these people just keep getting away with lying to us with such impunity? You know what I mean? What's going to happen to Tim Houston politically after the RCMP basically come out and call his bluff about the fentanyl? That's a pretty egregious lie to make up, right? Like to just, especially against, that's another thing about the progressive conservatives, by the way. They'll virtue signal about Indigenous rights all day. You know what I mean? And then all of a sudden, when it comes to their tax dollars, they really show their hand.
Yeah, and that's what it is. It should be, I think, more obvious to Nova Scotians now than ever that government is just, at best, a socially licensed extortion and protection racket. And Tim Houston is, the head of this thing, the boss of this Leviathan, and he's got to protect his monopoly. We're not allowed to buy our drugs from anybody but him. We're not allowed to buy our booze from anybody but him. And it has everything to do with protecting that monopoly. He made up this lie. He's using these fear tactics again to, stay out of the woods, stay the blazes home. I know that wasn't him, but he, the fear mongering, the scare tactics and everything, it's all there. I can't believe, I almost said I can't believe that he said that, but of course he said that. So yeah, I think that he's really, I think, helping Nova Scotians get an education in the true nature of government. Like, holy smokes.
Well, a lot of like, your stereotypical lefties, like, people with blue hair and nose rings that bought the COVID lies, hook, line, and sinker. The ones that were on the phone ready to report you if they saw you venturing too close to the bushes last summer. I'm hoping that a lot of them are seeing this obvious lie, and maybe they're going to start to connect the dots soon. I think that's the silver lining behind it. But yeah, just like the Emergencies Act thing. Like, I remember when it was declared that, like, the government didn't have the authority to do that. Where is the follow-up to that, right? Where's the consequences for these people? And like, that's one of the things that I really, really liked about Pierre Poilievre, because, like, man, when the Freedom Convoy was in its first weekend, and he tweeted out support of it, you know what I mean? He went down there and he took pictures with people. And he wasn't even opposition leader at the time. That was not a popular thing to do, like, amongst regular normie Canadians. Like, that was a big risk, right? But, like, where has his follow-up been about the Emergencies Act? I don't think he's mentioned it. You know what I mean?
Yeah, and I think that was a pander. You know, we don't call him pandering Pierre for nothing, because you know, the entire time, like, he didn't talk about the civil liberties violations that lockdowns represented, and he didn't really talk about, you know, just how devastating it was to families and to society, like the kind of alcoholism, like the death rate going up. He even said, like, he was all over Trudeau to get more vaccines. And the only way through this is to get more vaccines into arms. And if we don't do that, there's going to be more lockdowns. So, you know, he's tacitly supportive of lockdowns. And then really, like, I think the convoy, people kind of lost sight of the fact that it was, you know, a rebellion, a revolution against the whole political class. A peaceful one, of course, but
very peaceful.
Yeah. And that was another thing I should have said earlier, is I was so proud of everybody. Like, nobody even threw a punch or anything that whole time during the entire crackdown.
Oh, the media tried, though, man. The media tried to connect every little piece of crime that happened in Ottawa. Like, dude, my hat goes off to you for being there. Excuse me again. But, like, I was watching from home. You know what I mean? Like, that first, like, the days preceding it, because I remember, like, I became a little obsessed with, like, with lockdowns and just how wrong the COVID insanity was. But I was just at home on the internet observing. And that first week, like, you know, when the trucks were making their way across the country, I was like, man, this is going to be huge. I just knew it. But I was watching from home, and I would notice these stories pop up. Like, there was an arson. Like, I think, like, somebody, like, I don't know, lit something on fire in, like, an apartment lobby, and the media just couldn't wait to connect that with the Freedom Convoy, right?
Yeah.
And then it turned out that the guy who did it had, you know, he'd been mentally ill, and he did the exact same thing a couple months prior. So, but that didn't stop the news from being like, oh, Freedom Convoy arson, you know what I mean? They took every little thing that they could to try to make it seem violent.
People will still say it on Twitter. They'll still say that you know, that was the convoy that attempted an arson. It had nothing to do with the convoy.
No, it didn't. And just the hypocrisy and just blatant lies. Like, yeah, okay, fine. Like, I thought some people might think it's in poor taste. Like, somebody put a Canadian flag on Terry Fox that said mandate freedom. They didn't deface Terry Fox. They literally just had a flag that said mandate freedom on Terry Fox. And people lost their minds at this. Oh, how disrespectful. They're disrespecting a Canadian icon. Cut back to every pride parade of the last 10 years and somebody's put a rainbow flag on him. You know what I mean? Exactly. That's not a problem. But
yeah, and Chrystia Freeland made a big deal out of that. Said that, you know, there was defacement or something like that. Yeah, defacing the statue or and she was asked about that at the Public Order Emergencies Commission, and I think it was Eva Chipwick who showed her the picture of the kids with the Palestinian flags on you know, was it? Oh, maybe that was October 7, 2023. Yeah, that would have came later. But it was another event. I know that I have seen that picture in the National Post.
It was probably pride flags.
Probably pride flags, could have been. Yeah, but and she literally cannot understand. She, like, Chrystia Freeland, she's like, oh no, like, yeah, that Canadian flag, Terry Fox, because it was the convoy, that's defacing the statue. But this other one, no, I don't see anything wrong with that. Like, she's you know, she definitely is very deeply programmed, indoctrinated, and I think that's probably the most terrifying thing.
Yeah. Speaking of Chrystia, yeah, I never Freeland. That's a good one. I think I'm gonna steal that.
Go for
So
it.
speaking of Freeland, she has left Mark Carney's cabinet, right? She's pretty much announced that she's leaving. You know, she's taken a position, I think, at, is it Oxford? Some university over in Europe.
Is that? Yeah, I don't know where she's at now.
Yeah,
She
but
was going to
in
be
the
like the
meantime,
envoy to
she's been
Ukraine or
appointed
something.
envoy to Ukraine.
Yeah.
So, like, is that just her siphoning off more of her tax money before our tax money before she
Oh
leaves
yeah.
politics?
Yeah. Oh, 1,000%. I mean, what is the need for this? Who's asking for this? Who ran on it? Where was this in the election platform? And she's an MP. She's supposed to be there to represent her constituents. What the hell is she doing in Ukraine? So yeah, I think it's golden parachute time for Chrystia Freeland. She's been a very dutiful and ruthless soldier. So I think she's probably had her day, and everybody recognizes it. So it's time to go golden parachute her into some cushy position, dream job. Justin Trudeau, I don't know if he's going to end up at the UN at some point. Maybe he's just going to go back to stay a playboy. Let's hope that he never has any kind of decision-making power ever again.
I hope so. I hope he just fades off into obscurity, into private life. One bad thing about the only bad thing about the Freedom Convoy, I will say, is those flags, the fuck Trudeau flags, they might have influenced Katy Perry to make some bad decisions. I don't know.
God, just infuriating.
Yeah, I just hope, I don't know, man. I hope at some point maybe there will be some accountability coming for him, but I wouldn't hold my breath on that. And as far as the Conservatives go, man, so if Pierre Poilievre somehow doesn't pass his leadership review, do you really see anybody that could maybe pick up the torch and do a better job than him in the party?
I've been saying
Currently?
Jamil Jivani. I think he seems principled and smart, and he doesn't have all that COVID baggage with him. He didn't vote for Bill C-4 like the rest of them did. And he was roommates with, Vice President of the United States, JD Vance. I think that he could do a lot to mend bridges with the Americans. We would have a friend in the White House if he were in there. So he would definitely be, and he's electable. I think. Like, I like other guys in the Conservative Party, like Larry Brock, but I don't see him being elected prime minister. He's not electable.
Well, that's the thing about electable, because we talked a little bit about like the complacent nature of Canadians at this point in time. And like the things that you mentioned, like his connection to JD Vance, like that would be used by the Liberals, to just run an effective propaganda campaign, basically ensuring that, he wouldn't have a shot. Because the Conservative Party, like, it's going to go two ways right now. Like, it almost reminds me of the days, like, I mean, I was too young to pay attention then, but from what I understand it, the modern Canadian Conservative Party at one point, they used to be the Progressive Conservatives until they aligned with the Reforms, right? Which is like a little bit closer to, what the PPC is today, right? So it all depends on which direction they're going to go.
It was like Reform and the Canadian Alliance, and then they all merged into the Conservative, Big Tent Conservative. But like I said, they reverted to their progressive roots after Harper left, and I think that that would be a challenge for Jamil to have to overcome, where they would sling all, because they do it already. They already say like he was roommates with JD, as if that's some kind of a bad thing. But I think he's fresh blood. Like, he's a new generation of politician. Like I said, he doesn't have all that baggage with him. He's a little younger. I think he could play it, right? Like he would have to play it, and he would have to meet these problems head on. I think that he seems like the kind of guy who would do that, just based on the way he goes around with these speaking engagements, trying to engage with young men on campuses and things like that. And he's taking on those kinds of issues and saying, like, yes, we should care about our young men, and we should encourage them and things like that. Like that's not something that you would hear like a typical progressive say. A liberal, certainly not, especially white men. They're the devil. But Jamil Jivani doesn't shy away from that kind of stuff. So I think he could probably just lean into that and call them out on their BS and say, like, look what you've done. You polarized us against our greatest friends and allies. And this fear mongering, like, it has to stop. I think that it's manageable, I guess, is at the end of the day. That's something that they would try. But if you play it right, you could totally flip it around on them and show Canadians like what they're really like.
Well, that's the thing, Pierre Poilievre. That's what's so frustrating about him. And again, man, I generally support him. I've got a whole backlog of YouTube videos throughout the election where I was rooting for him, and man, was I ever disappointed. But dude, He had a golden opportunity that he just let slip through his fingers, man. The minute Donald Trump went on that, Megyn Kelly, I think, interviewed him, was just like, well, the Liberals are going to win now because of these tariffs. And when he said, like, I don't care, it would be easier for me. I prefer a Liberal. He said, I prefer a Liberal. And the Conservative guy is no friend of mine. Dude, the Conservatives should have taken every dollar in their war chest and paid for ads on CTV, Global, and CBC with like an ad running that. You know what I mean? He should have used that like ad nauseum, and he didn't.
Well, yeah, but I guess I see it differently. The thing is that my whole problem with the Conservatives and what makes them progressive Conservatives is they accept all of the progressives' premises. Like I was saying before, that carbon is somehow a pollutant, that gender is a social construct, that firearms are just for hobbies, that Islam is a religion of peace, that and that Donald Trump is Orange Goldstein. So what should have happened is Pierre should have, because I can't even remember what it was now, but Pierre did something to piss off Trump. And then Trump was like, this guy's not even a conservative. I don't even want to deal with him. And he was like, you know what, screw it. Put the Liberal in there because I know he knew he's going elbows up and all of this crap. And he's like, yeah, you know what? I want the 51st state and I'm going for it. And I think that's the art of the deal. When he says Canada, he wants Canada to be the 51st state. He means Alberta. That's what he's really after. So I think that he, when he saw that, what Pierre did, he's like, okay, if we're going to do this polarization and economic warfare stuff, then put the Liberal in there and let's do it. So I think that Pierre really should have played that, differently from the very beginning, instead of accepting the progressive premises, the premise that that Donald Trump is Orange Goldstein.
Yeah, I could see it that way. But like at the same point, like he does sort of have to play their bullshit game. I hate to say it because just the way the Canadians are, that like we are as a people, but
then lead like we should be. We're saying it. It's like we should be better, right? Like if we had better leadership, maybe we'd be better people. I think he should lead. And that's what I mean. Like he's a follower. He marches to the beat of their drum. He's never going to win. You're never going to out-liberal the Liberals. I'm sorry.
Yeah, and especially too, the Conservatives really do need to differentiate themselves right now, because Carney essentially, I don't believe this. Like I know better, but the narrative going around in like to a lot of Canadians right now is that Carney is the most conservative Liberal they've had in a long time. They're calling him a blue Liberal. You know what I mean? Like they're saying, oh, he's leading like a conservative. And it's making Poilievre mad. Like he's doing these interviews where he's just like, they stole my best ideas. And he just looks weak and impotent. You know what I mean? So like anybody in Canada who likes the idea of having a progressive conservative, why would you vote for the progressive conservatives when Mark Carney is the exact same thing? And you go with the devil you know, right? So they really do need to differentiate themselves.
That is what they're calling him too. Is one other thing they call Carney is a progressive conservative.
Exactly. So like a lot of people look at this as like, oh, the Overton window is moving over to the right. but it's actually moving over to the left because you just basically now have a wall. Mark Carney is the end of the acceptable like window of opinion. You know what I mean? Anybody to the right of Carney is just unacceptable, right? So I feel like the conservatives are they're stuck between a rock and a hard place. And lately they've been trying to like move closer to Carney for some reason. And I just don't see it working.
Well, I actually don't think that Carney is going to be as ruthless with the citizenry as Trudeau was, like calling us unacceptables and things like that. Like the rhetoric doesn't seem to be just as god awfully, polarizing, and so maybe he won't be as polarizing, but he is coming in with these draconian laws, so he's definitely going to be a tyrant and all that stuff. But but at the same time, it's not fair. It's not unfair to characterize him as a progressive conservative, because he did adopt axe the tax and stuff like that. Now he's bringing in the industrial carbon tax, so it's a moot point.
Well, that's what I mean. It's all fake. It's all optics, man. Sure, he is a progressive conservative, but let's not forget he wrote values.
I think it's all BS, though.
Yeah?
Yeah, I think it has more to do with the fact that he's in bed with China. Because there was a clip, I showed it a while back there, where he was the head of the Bank of Canada. And he was saying, the best way to drive Canada's economy is with oil and gas. So he said that in the Commons Committee. And then he went off to the Bank of England, where he brokered that deal with the Bank of China. And now he's the head of Brookfield, and he's got Brookfield's heavily invested in green tech for China. So, all of his whole portfolio aligns against us. So, I think that he was Trudeau's close advisor at the time that he wrote values, and he would have been benefiting from lockdowns as well, being the investment banker type, was the greatest wealth transfer from the poor to the rich, from the young to the old, in all of human history. So he would have been one of those vampires that was feeding off the rest of us during lockdowns. But I think that's essentially that is the grift. Really, is he gets rich off the demise of Canada.
Yeah, so it doesn't matter if he's pushing green technologies or oil in his own portfolio. So you don't really think he's a principled, net zero globalist.
No, he didn't really become a climate zealot until he was invested in green tech, as far as I can tell.
Wow, that's fascinating. So he really is Mr. Burns. I know that meme has been going around a lot, but it really is a fair comparison.
Yes, absolutely.
Yeah, and as far as having no principles in that regard, he's definitely the people in Canada that are truly woke, like the Justin Trudeau fan club, they're going to start to pick up on this stuff soon, I think. I think it's only a matter of time. When Carney had the meeting with Trump, for instance, I think it was the last time he was in the Oval Office, he's got no spine, first of all. He doesn't actually believe in the things that he professes to believe in. Because, Mark Carney has a trans kid, right? Do you know that?
Yeah.
So that moment when Donald Trump basically said, "Oh, we don't do we don't do the woke stuff," and he goes, "We don't do the woke stuff." He's like, "We don't give hormones to kids," and he said something like that. And Carney perks right up and he looks. He doesn't say anything. You know what I mean? Canadians elected this guy to stand up to Trump, and there he is. He's not even going to say something for his own kid. You know what I'm saying?
Yeah.
So you're right.
I love that Trump is calling him out on that stuff too. This is the sickest thing that ever happened in Canada, and I know it's happening in countries, all over Europe, and but the cash review now, and we haven't moved an inch on this stuff, and it's like I said, as long as the old guard stays in place, Bill C4, the Conservatives, the whole House of Commons voted on it unanimously. Michelle Rempel did a dance when it passed. She was dancing for joy. You had Aaron O'Toole would have been leader of the opposition, so he would have whipped the vote on the Conservative side. But Pierre Poilievre voted for it when it was Bill C6. He voted for it twice under the 42nd Parliament, and then he voted for it again in the 43rd with the unanimous vote. At least Andrew Scheer voted against it in the 42nd. But as long as you have Pierre Poilievre as leader because of that vote, nobody's going to talk about it. Like, no Conservative politician is going to be able to talk about it. Oh, yeah, I know this clip.
Yeah, so I'm going to pull this up here. I want to get your take on this, because this is obviously a lot of people will, when you say that Pierre hasn't said anything about Bill C4, he voted for it, people will always show you this.
Do you support age restrictions for puberty blockers and hormone therapies for trans kids?
I think that Justin Trudeau is trying to divide and distract Canadians by spreading disinformation about the decisions that premiers and parents are making.
What do you think? I want to know your position.
What is your own party policy? It's your own party policy. At party convention.
I think we should protect the rights of parents to make their own decisions.
What does it mean?
With regards to their children. And I believe that adults should have the freedom to make any decision they want about their bodies.
But minors, surgeries and medical interventions for minors, as your own party members suggested.
Medical interventions like what?
That is the language that your party
What medical
used.
Interventions?
Well, you would have to ask your party members.
What medical interventions?
Such as puberty blockers and hormone replacement.
For minors?
Yeah. Yes.
Irreversible? You're talking about irreversible?
I'd like to understand your position.
I want to be clear. No, I want to be clear. I just want to be clear.
For minors.
Puberty blockers for minors?
Do you agree with that? Do you agree with that?
I think that we should protect children and their ability to make adult decisions when they're adults.
So you think only adults should make you said yes? Just to be clear, you said yes, only adults should take puberty blockers?
I think we should protect children, let them make adult decisions when they become adults.
So that means you are against puberty blockers for kids under the age of 18. Is that
yes.
unclear? Okay. What about, can I ask you about in Alberta?
By the way, I just want to make another comment on this. Justin Trudeau is again puffing out his chest, trying to divide Canadians and attack parents who are trying to protect their kids. He will, in the end, back down on this, just like he had to back down on his firearms policy, just like he had to back down on bringing in medical assistance in dying for people suffering from mental illness. Just like he's backing down again and again and again, he will back down on this because he is not interested in protecting kids. He's interested in using this as a divisive wedge to distract from doubling housing costs and quadrupling carbon taxes on our people.
All right, so I'm going to pause it there because that's essentially the end of the clip. He just goes on to do his usual, canned speech, you know what I mean?
Yeah.
Yeah.
So first of all, he didn't say anything about Bill C4 in that clip. And that was the bill that he voted yay to 3 times to jail parents who refuse to give their child a sex change. He had to be asked about this issue. The press asked him about it, and he dodged the first time. He tried to flip it around and start talking about, Justin Trudeau and he's dividing people and blah, blah, blah. And they said, no, your party's policy. They had to keep hammering him to get him to say something. And then he finally said that, he thinks that parents should be able to protect their kids or whatever he was saying. No, he doesn't, because he voted against it. And he voted to jail parents who try to protect their kids from the trans-industrial complex after I told him about how the Children's Hospital of Eastern Ontario stalked my daughter while I was deployed to Iraq, started calling her phone directly saying, you're 16 now, sweetheart, so you don't have to have your daddy's permission anymore. You can come on in for your sex change. She turned 16 while I was in Iraq. That's what happened. I asked him if he'd read a letter written by me on the floor of the House of Commons, and I would go there, and he said no. I asked him if, what else did I ask him? I asked him that, and I asked him if he would listen to the recordings that I made at the appointments that I attended, and he said no. And then he went on and he voted for it 2 more times. He voted for Bill C6 second time, and he voted for Bill C4 in the unanimous vote. And then when he was pressed on it, nailed down like Jello to a wall, he finally said, he pandered and said, no, I think the parents should be able to protect their kids. Well, he made it illegal. He already made it illegal for parents to protect their kids. So it's like I said, like the guy is just a snake. Like he's a pandering politician. And what the Trudeau maniacs seem to have fallen in love with is his public image after an image remake. I mean, he took off the glasses and put on a T-shirt that makes him look like he has muscles. And they're like, oh, yeah, this guy is our savior. They gave him a plaid shirt at some event there the other night. Oh, hey, yeah, thanks. You guys know how much I love plaid. He doesn't wear plaid. He wears turtlenecks. I lived in his riding. I actually ran into him when I first brought this issue up with him because I'd been emailing his office for something like a year already. And I was like, for crying out loud, Pierre, like I need to talk to you about this. And he was wearing a turtleneck when I ran into him at the gas station. So that's Pierre Poilievre. He wears designer glasses. He's got slick hair. And on a casual Sunday drive with his family, he wears a cashmere turtleneck. Not plaid. Okay. So, and people seem to think that that's who he is. I'm like, no, he's not. He's been in the parliament for 20 years. Look at anything at him at any point, at any time that he's been in parliament, right up until the moment that he got tapped to be leader of the opposition and start running for prime minister. That's who he really is. But now they think that he's this image that they've created about him. And I'm like, have we learned nothing? Through COVID, have we learned absolutely nothing?
Well, actually, it was a little bit after he became leader of the opposition that he took off the glasses and changed his image a little bit, because I think he reads the criticisms, and it was right around the time people started calling him Milhouse.
Yeah.
Because Milhouse really took off. Yeah, man. Has anybody been jailed under Bill C-4 for, like, conversion therapy or trying to stop, like, as you call it, the trans-industrial complex from going after their kids? Like, has anybody actually gone to jail? Like
that's what Pierre said to me when I tracked him down at a campaign event in Truro there in 2024. I tried to get him on camera, but his staffers, like I have that on camera where they're like, "Oh no, sir, please," and they actually tried to grab my camera and hit the button on it, so I didn't get the recording of me putting him on the spot about Bill C-4. And that was what he said to me. So is anybody in jail for this? And I had to nail him down. He is one slippery son of a bitch. And I was like, by the letter of the law, in accordance with Bill C-4, as written, is it legal to intervene? And he was like, no. And he just kind of looked down at his shoes and I was like, yeah, you better do something about that bill, Pierre. He wouldn't even look me in the eye. And I walked away. He's a weak, slimy son of a bitch. No, nobody, as far as I know, has been jailed under Bill C-4. But the thing is, because it prohibits what they call conversion therapy to counsel a child to prefer a cisgender identity, as in to help them feel comfortable in their natural bodies, as soon as you go, and I had this experience, as soon as you take them to a counselor, a therapist, they'll be like, oh, no, it's surgery. They got to go to the gender clinic now, do the puberty blockers, hormones, and surgery, because they say gender dysphoria. Those are the magic words. It's not legal for me to provide counseling at this point. Now we have to refer them for the puberty blockers, hormones, and surgeries. So that's how it works. And if you take your child south of the border, then you'll go to jail. If you take them down there to get counseling, to help them feel comfortable in their natural bodies, then you'll go to jail for 5 years. But as far as I know, nobody's done that yet.
Yeah. So admittedly, I didn't look into this as much as you have, like, obviously, because you have a really personal connection to this, obviously, man. And like, fuck, I'm sorry for what you're going through. Thanks. But I'm just trying to steel man an argument as to why people would support this. And I guess, like, it's really insidious what they've done, because they've taken, like, what people would think of as conversion therapy, right? Like the way that, like, your average person would have thought about it like 10 years ago, right? Like, pray the gay away, right? Yeah. You know what I mean? Like, the libertarian in me wants to just be like, okay, well, like what Pierre said, adults making adult decisions. You know what I mean? Yeah. But yeah, at some point, in the last decade, like culturally, we've just come to accept like little kids. You know what I mean? Like it's yeah, because I obviously like I'm a pretty liberal, open-minded person, really, when it comes down to it, when it comes to adults. Again, consenting adults doing whatever the fuck they want to do, right?
Yeah.
But at a certain point, it became something entirely different.
Yeah, it's a religion. It's it's a secular religion. It's all based on a Marxist perspective on gender. It was Marxist professor Judith Butler who first advanced this idea of gender as a social construct. And she is on the record more recently saying that Hamas is part of the global left. They're part of the global progressive movement. So that's what we're up against here. And what they do, in the Marxist paradigm, everything's inverted. It inverts the moral paradigm. With the gender question, it there's I could get into this whole thing about dialectical materialism. The Marxist dialectical materialism is based on the Hegelian dialectic, and they essentially invert the moral paradigm by throwing the antithesis at the thesis being like a claim about reality, basically, and they throw the antithesis at us, and through a process of dialectical negation, you end up with something like a compromise, a synthesis. The two ideas synthesize, and so really what we're up against is something like Islamunism, hence Queers for Palestine. Like those two things don't belong together at all, but because the Palestinians are like a proletariat class, and the Jews are a bourgeois class, and because queers are a proletariat class, and straight white cis hetero patriarchs are a bourgeois class, the workers of the world unite, and Marxists support every revolution, are the kinds of things that Marx said. Then through this process of dialectical synthesis, you end up with Queers for Palestine, this synthesized proletariat class overthrowing all of the values, Western values, that made us great in the first place.
Yeah. But like back to Bill C4. So do you think like this whole insidious thing that they've done here with like, forget pray the gay away, because that's like obviously what they've sold it as, but like people can't really go to a psychiatrist then.
No.
So it's really insidious what they've done then, because like they've basically like really incentivized therapists and psychiatrists to like not actually listen to what the patient might want, right?
Yes, and that's another criticism too. Like people do have, issues managing their sex lives and things like that, and so they need, they want therapy. They maybe don't want to be as promiscuous, or maybe, there are guys with homosexual tendencies that would rather not have them, and these kinds of things. And again, I'm liberal, I'm libertarian like you, like you're an adult. So as long as you're not doing harm to somebody else, like you live your life as you see fit. And if they think that, these are, this is the life that they want to live, and they want some help living that life, and they should be able to get that help, but you can't. Under Bill C4. That's not as tragic as what's happening with the kids, obviously, but I have heard others making these arguments as well, like men with homosexual tendencies and stuff like that have been getting therapy before. Like it's not as black and white as they're making it out to be. It's because they've made because communists use women and minorities as human shields, and they basically co-opted all the civil rights movements and they're using them to tear down Western civilization right now. It's a black and white issue, but it's never like that in real life. There are always these shades of gray. Like, you could be a flaming homosexual, or you could be a guy, and maybe it is because of your Christianity, but whatever. Like, as long as you're not harming other people and you're living a good life and this kind of thing, then you should be able to pursue these kinds of therapies. And maybe you would rather just be a straight-laced Guido guy, but you're having a little trouble managing homosexual thoughts or something like that. Whatever, like it's your life. You should be able to get that therapy.
Well, yeah, no, I could definitely see a scenario where, like, you know what I mean? Like, I don't know, maybe somebody cheats on their wife with a dude, right? And then the wife's just like, okay, well, we're going to counseling or we're getting a divorce, right?
Yeah.
So the guy takes like a heart, like, like maybe back in the day, like he might get a therapist that would just be like, help him manage these things and get him on the straight and narrow. And now, like, under this legislation, you're saying the therapist might just be like, be poly, embrace it. You know what I mean? Like, yeah, man, we're definitely, and it's funny that, like, I'm having this realization because, like, I'm not, full disclosure, man, like, I know you are, but, like, I'm not a Christian. I wouldn't say I'm an atheist. You know what I mean? Like, maybe I'm agnostic. Who knows? But the point is, like, I used to be a militant atheist. You know what I mean? Like, I'm ashamed of it, but, like, way back in the day, I used to be, like, really snooty about my atheism. And I used to mock people that believed in Christ or Islam or, like, whatever. You know what I mean? But, like, dude, one thing that I learned during COVID is it wasn't the Christians that were trying to lock me in my home and force me to take a medication I didn't want to keep my job. You know what I mean? I just see a bunch of people that are trying to live and let live, to be honest. And,
yeah, I do think we need Christianity. I'm glad we have it. Yeah, like you, I guess I was a militant atheist for a few years there, but I don't think I could be an atheist in anything but a Christian country. So, and they were way overrepresented in the freedom movement, or whatever you want to call it. And I'm like a cultural Christian. I came up around all this stuff, and I try to. I heard Jordan Peterson say that these are stories that your ancestors bequeathed to you for the intent that you would take a lesson from them. So that's what you should try to do. And so I try to do that. I have a very different take than he does on especially like a lot of the Old Testament stories, in the Garden of Eden in particular. He likes to talk about the serpent and the corruption and the fall and things like that. And I think he's got it backwards, but maybe I'll maybe I'll get to take him up on debate someday. I don't know. He's kind of doing his Jordan Peterson thing again, though. He's a bit of a weird guy, very eccentric kind of guy. So I think he's off the wagon again right now.
His daughter said something about his health, but do you think that's just code for off the wagon?
Yeah, he had problems with benzos and stuff like that. So who knows? Yeah. But I think I gotta call it a night though, brother. I get some food and stuff like that. So and hit the hay here. So
all right, yeah. I guess. Geez, look at that. Yeah, we've done over 2 hours now, man.
Yeah. Sorry too. I love to talk and everything, but I didn't get a chance to eat earlier. Well, I'm an old dude, and I usually crash pretty early.
Fair enough, man. All right. Well, before we get out of here, do you want to remind people like how they can follow you, see what they're up to, what you're up to?
I'm most active on X. It's just at Jeff Evely, Evely, and you can find me on Facebook as well. Most people follow my Jeff Evely #PPC page, my candidates page, and I keep that up to date. I don't really do much on my personal page anymore, but those are the two main ones. If you want to follow me, and you can find my web pages online, and send me an email if you want through the People's Party website or through Nova Scotia East PPC, which is the one that my riding association manages. So feel free to hit me up.
Awesome. All right, Jeff, thanks a lot for doing this, man. I really enjoyed the conversation.
Yeah, me too, Johnny. Thanks for having me again.
No problem.